Evolution Security Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Evolution Security Podcast. Just have to let you know that we have a very special guest here. Brian Schilt is back.
Yeah, well, hello, Aaron. I have been absent a little bit here and there, and I will talk about some of that after our guest today. But, real quick, I'm going to bust this out so we can get to it because it's a really special guest. We always want to give a shout out to our sponsors, and that's because it's people that we, use, love, and support their products and believe in what they do. And I'll just give a quick shout to Origin. They make the best gis, rash guards, and honestly, the best supplements I can find anywhere. And I currently have a Path gi on order, so awesome. I beat you to that punch, Aaron.
Awesome.
I know Eric's talking about maybe getting one too, but I ordered the Pro pants and I got a rash guard coming with it. So we'll see how that goes. But my understanding is they feel a little lighter, but they're still extremely durable. So I'm stoked to see what it's like. Cause, I have a decent gi now, but it's nowhere near the quality of what that product is. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to hearing about it when you get it.
Yeah, there'll definitely be a little review on the show. So obviously we want to send you to originmain.com. You can use the code EvoSec10, EVOSEC10. Get yourself 10% off your purchase. And that, I believe that works on everything on the site. So whether you're buying some mulk or a gi or, just a pair of spats, they've got some awesome gear. And then switch it up right quick to Tenacore. Man, those guys really, we always talk about their holsters and we all use them and own them. And, I carry a Velo 4 daily. They've been posting some social media stuff and doing some just super cool, man. And, we got to brag a little bit. Their most recent post was some video clips of some nice throws and some nice defensive tactics that was recorded at the event that we hosted last year, the ECQC here in Olympia. And that it's just really cool to see that. And, we were all there and we're in some of the videos.
Yep.
So
cool.
Go hop on and check them out online or on their social media. And same thing there. If you find a holster or something you want to buy, it's just EvoSec on there, EVOSEC, just EvoSec, get you 10% off your purchase. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. I am really enjoying that Kurtum, man, because it is so flexible in how you can use it and where you can wear it. And I know you've got one too, Aaron, and just it's quality stuff made here in the U.S. And that's one of the biggest reasons we started looking into them is because they do what they say. They're made here. They do their homework. They take feedback. They make revisions, and they continue to improve on their products. So there you go, man.
Yeah, good stuff. I think my Kurtum is my favorite holster these days. I'm actually looking at my 17 in it right now.
Nice.
Good stuff. Well, Brian, how you doing, buddy? It's been a little bit since we've chatted over the video here. How you doing?
Good, man. I'll have more to share during accountability, but I'm on the path of recovery. I had a little injury. That's not why I wasn't on the show, but I've been nursing a hamstring, and so that's been challenging. But overall, man, things are great. Things are. I've just been active and getting work done.
Awesome.
It's so satisfying to end a week, and it's by the way, it's Friday. Aaron and I have just finished our work weeks, and I feel like I kicked ass this week, man.
Cool. Yeah, I have too. So we'll talk more about that in accountability. That'll be fun to recount it. But we just have to say real quick that again, some movie magic. Brian is here with me, but Eric unfortunately had to pull out literally about 30 minutes ago because he is on the road and doing a little bit of work. So he is indisposed and couldn't make it, but he'll be on the interview with me. So
yeah. So in theory, I'm going to step out of the room and Eric's going to step in.
Again, some of that movie magic. So
yeah. Well, we alluded to this in the last show, but our guest tonight is Cecil Burch. And if you remember back to the last episode, the person that was most influential to Mike Brown and his jiu-jitsu path was Cecil Burch.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought it a little fitting to just do a follow-up and run along on that and talk to Mr. Burch about what he does. And, this is his second time on the show, so we went a little more in depth, tried to focus on the jiu-jitsu stuff, part of it, and I think you'll enjoy what you hear, man.
Me too. Let's get on to it.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome Cecil Burch to the show. How are you doing, Cecil?
Good, man. How are you guys?
Man, doing great. Man, I just got the chance to hang out with you in November at the Range Master Instructor Development class.
Yep.
Man, what a great time.
That was so much fun.
Man, I had a great time. Every time we had a break, you and I were BSing and talking, and it was tough to break because it's like, man, I'm having such a good time talking with Cecil. You got to get.
I was running from LaPree. I didn't want to talk to him, so I was trying to find somebody else to talk to.
That's awesome, man. Chris is a great dude. Awesome.
He's a great guy. He's just a great guy. Great shooter. Just a good person.
Yeah, he was one of the top shooters for sure. And, of course, we just had him on the show, and that was a outstanding set of content.
He kind of stays under the radar, but he's got a lot of good stuff to add to the conversation about self-defense and shooting and state of the world.
Yeah, and frankly, man, that Casa Grande, I've got great memories from my first DCQC there with you, and this last class, and Aaron's about to take the instructor development in May, and he and I are going to come back out in November to take the advance with you guys.
Nice. Yep.
Well, Cecil, listen, brother, we can just take a little bit of a short bio, kind of give our audience that hasn't happened to listen to our previous show with you or happens to know you, just give us a short bio real quick.
Sure. I'm Cecil Burch, a longtime martial artist. My brand, my company's name is Immediate Action Combatives. I'm in my 42nd year of training martial arts continuously. There's never been a break. I've always been actively training something. I've done pretty much all the major arts over the 80s and 90s. Tons of Chinese systems, Filipino martial arts systems, multiple Indonesian systems, a number of like modern eclectic street fighting systems. I've got instructor creds in a number of them, or I had. I never kept them up, so I can't really say I have them. But the past 25 years or so, my focus has been on what a lot of people call the combat sports, boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. And when I say boxing and wrestling, I'm including the sister art as the umbrella term. Boxing, Muay Thai, Savate, Sanda, that kind of stuff. And wrestling, freestyle, folk style, Greco, Judo, Sambo, Sumo, all that kind of stuff. Along with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's been my main focus as far as the arts, and spent about 20 plus years trying to figure out how this all works together in a modern self-defense paradigm with the possibility of multiple opponents, possibility of weapons in place on either side or both sides, as well as how we deal with the legal issues with all of it. And I've been traveling around 15 years now. 15 years or so of teaching open enrollment seminars around the country.
Well, that's a good point to bring up, Cecil, that we, the EvoSec crew, are going to host you here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, July 16th through the 18th at Clinch Martial Arts Academy. Man, we're just really looking forward to that because, you know, we've trained under some of your Shivworks buddies, and I know Eric's trained with you. But man, I'm looking forward to that seminar. But could you give our audience, an overview of what to expect at that seminar?
Sure. So this is my fundamental coursework. This is what I kind of view as my essentials. Like, I teach other stuff too, sometimes at conferences, sometime in different classes, but my core stuff is this 2.5 day block. So 3 hours on Friday and 9 hours on Saturday is all ground. It's jiu-jitsu based for sure, but it's not trying to turn you into a jiu-jitsu practitioner. It's what happens when you find yourself on the ground through no intent of your own. What do you do? Maybe weapons are in play, like I said, on either or both sides, multiple opponents. You've got all these things you have to worry about. You can't just say, well, just get up, or it doesn't work. You can't do that. You have to know how to deal with that. And you're not going to figure it out in the heat of the moment. I'm sorry. That is not going to happen. So we spend about 12 hours over that day and a half looking at all those issues. And then Sunday is the same mindset, but it's all on our feet. It's all focused on how not to get knocked out, especially when you're taken by surprise. And then how you win the vertical clinch. How you impose your control over them and don't let them control you in order to deal with the fight. You want to stay engaged, stay entangled, or do you need to disengage? Again, it's the same thing. We'll just get away. Yeah, the problem with all these wonderful internet ideas is the other guy has a vote in everything.
Yeah.
And he's already attacked you. That's the whole reason you're there in the first place. He's not suddenly going to change his mind, or we certainly can't plan on him changing his mind just because you start to resist. And so you have to know what to do. And so that's basically my core stuff. It sort of came out of ECQC. Craig, he's got 20 to 22 hours to hit you with the fire hose with all this stuff. And he doesn't have time to go into a lot of depth on the ground stuff for sure, and the clinch stuff, because you've got to work in the shooting, you've got to work in plenty of time for the actual scenarios, all that kind of stuff. So what I do with this fundamental coursework is sort of, I take that slice out of ECQC. When you're entangled, when you're on the ground, what do we need to know how to deal with that? Everything else is sort of, we'll touch on muck and everything else, but that's not the focus. The focus is the fight's already on. You've screwed up the pre-fight threat containment. You're on the ground, or you're entangled, or he's pummeling, he's striking, pounding away at your head. You have to deal with that situation. And so it's 21 hours over 2.5 days of figuring out the best ways to deal with that. For anybody, I'm pretty proud of the coursework in the sense that I can take somebody who's never done any of it, who's never done any hand-to-hand stuff, and they're going to get something out of it, and they're going to be much better at the end of the weekend. But I can also help people who've been doing it. I've had jiu-jitsu black belts. I've had professional MMA fighters. I've had, been there, done that, base shooting operators who are all, great warriors and fighters, and they've all gotten better. They've got something out of the class where they're like, I've never thought about that. I've never seen that. Oh, I need to start doing that. So it's I try to make it's for everybody, but it's definitely geared. You don't have to know anything. You can start from scratch. And I've had a lot of people a lot of people, both other instructors like Todd Green and people like that, as well as tons of students who go, I wish I'd have taken this class before ECQC.
Wow.
Todd Green always argued with me. He was always like, he would say to Craig and I, you guys need to make Cecil's class the prerequisite for ECQC. And I was like, I kind of get his point. But I do think sometimes the power of ECQC is when you don't know anything.
Absolutely.
I think that transformative power is amplified when you go in thinking a certain way and you're completely changed by like, oh, I don't know any of this stuff. And then come to me and we can fix a lot of those issues, as opposed to, here, I'll give you like this, this safety net to go into. And you'll get more learning out of ECQC. You'll retain more stuff. But I think you lose a little bit of that power of, oh my God, what is just happening to me over this, this weekend.
Yeah.
Well, Cecil, one of the important aspects of the Shivworks Collective, which assuredly started with Craig's tutelage for you guys and/or companionship, is probably what he would rather frame it. But ECQC is just like you described. Anybody from the beginner all the way to the black belt MMA stud gets something out of ECQC, and it does not at all surprise me that's exactly what takes place in your courses. And I'm so pumped that we got this coming up, because
me too. I love Tulsa.
Man, it's going to be a great time.
And that's where I got my start. If it wasn't for Mike Brown in Tulsa and the training group at the time, there's a good chance I wouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. Or if I did, it would take it would have taken a lot longer.
So Cecil, it's amazing to hear you say that, because we just had Mike Brown on for another interview, which is about to air. And he said something really cool. He said that Cecil is the person who taught me jiu-jitsu.
Oh, that's cool to hear. That makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah, when he said that, I thought that, knowing the humble person you are, and I just thought it would be awesome to bring that up. That was a really, really cool statement.
That's nice to hear. It was for Mike. Mike was the one who took the chance. He said, hey, because we had been talking and exchanging PMs, and he'd been asking me advice on boxing stuff and jiu-jitsu stuff. And they said, hey, would you come out and teach us? And I'm like, sure. And, I fell in love with Tulsa right away because the group was great. The environment was so welcoming, and those guys were just, they were just soaking up knowledge, and always treated me great. And Mike, I might have taught Mike jiu-jitsu. I gave him maybe some knowledge, but man, he took that off on his own. He's a damn good black belt that's entirely due to him and not me.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was you started him off and taught him a lot, and you were definitely his biggest influence in jiu-jitsu.
He was my first blue belt I ever gave.
Awesome. That's a cool story, man.
I'm not sure. He's either the first or second purple, and I think he's the second brown belt I ever gave. The blue. He's the first belt I ever awarded was to Mike.
You awarded his brown belt? I had no idea. That's cool.
Yeah, blue, purple, and brown.
Man, this is we didn't know this, and of course it's because Mike. We don't talk about a lot of those details. Mike keeps a lot of things to himself. He just doesn't. He doesn't. What's the word? He doesn't broadcast a lot of things. So this is great information, man. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm glad to see him doing the podcast. I loved the first episode just because he's got so much. He's like Lepre.
Yep.
He's got so much to offer, but because he's sort of he just does his own thing, that a lot of people miss out on hearing that kind of stuff.
Well, you know, Spencer Keepers said on a podcast one time, and it really took me, it's like, man, yeah, that's true. He said something of the sort that Mike Brown is one of the best instructors that you're never going to hear about.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And so it's important for us, at least through our audience, to make sure that Mike Brown gets the credit and the accolades that he deserves. And I know he doesn't want to hear that, but he deserves.
We're going to say it anyway.
Yep. Well, on that note, so we've been on a jiu-jitsu kick recently. Not that we ever have not been, but we've been covering a lot of firearms subjects. And one of our missions in EvoSec is pressing the efficacy of jiu-jitsu in the fact that we believe that it's more important than the gun itself. You know, it's just such an important part of the defensive paradigm that we felt part of our mission should be to be, you know, shouting that from the rooftops. And one of the things that I'm starting to notice is that there does seem to be an acceptance and a hunger for jiu-jitsu in the firearms community as of recently. I just started observing that, and I just wanted to know, have you saw that as well?
Oh, for sure. It's definitely something that's over the last 3-ish years, there's been a noticeable uptick in that kind of thing. You know, and we notice it, you know, Craig, myself, Paul, Chris, Larry, we notice it because we've been banging our head against the walls for, 20 years. And all of us at some point or rather have been treated like, like the redheaded stepchild. Because no, that's stupid. We don't need that. You don't need to do that kind of stuff. You try to wrestle me, I'll just shoot you. That's
that one. Yeah.
You'll get killed if you go to the ground. All that kind of nonsense from people we've heard all this time. And then there's around 2014, 2015, 2016. You start to see this shift. You start to see this major shift in people's attitudes towards it. And a lot more people who had been, even if they hadn't actively been fighting against us, they weren't so rah, I need to do that. All of a sudden, they're doing it. They're starting to do it. And then the younger generation of firearms instructors, the guys who've, been around 5, 6, 7 years, they're much more likely to go, yeah, I need jiu-jitsu. I've always had lots of people reach out to me, like email or PMs or something, going, hey, Cecil, I was looking at jiu-jitsu. I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure how to find an academy. And I'll help them out. I'll go, okay, where are you at? Oh, I know this place, or I'm not sure about this place, but it looks really good. I've been doing that from day one, pretty much. But over the past couple years, that sort of exploded. If a week goes by that I don't get a message like that, it's weird. I've sent so many people. Number one, I've sold so many gis for certain companies, and I've gotten so many people to join jiu-jitsu. I mean, Craig, Craig's done it as well, but I know directly that I have, because I've gotten literally at this point hundreds and hundreds of messages of people saying exactly that, and asking for the help. And, oh man, I started jiu-jitsu because of you, blah, blah, blah. I mean, so I've been teaching at the Rangemaster Tactical Conference. I think this was maybe the 10th year, this one just a couple weeks ago. And when I first started, I was teaching, I was teaching things like I teach in my coursework. Very much weapon centric, here's an addition. But this last one a couple weeks ago, I taught a straight jiu-jitsu class. I basically taught a class as if, hey, if you join a jiu-jitsu academy, here's the way a typical class looks like. Here's some typical warm-ups. Here's some typical techniques. Here's some training drills. Here's why we do the drills. And here's what rolling's like. And I taught it in a gi. And a ton of people. I don't know, I had 30 people. Most of them were in gis. That's unheard. Even 3 or 4 years ago, that would be unheard of.
Well, Cecil, that's legit, man. I love hearing that. And I saw Sherman House post an article or a blog post about it. And I read through it, and that's exactly what I thought. I was like, man, this is a change for TacCon.
Yep.
And I saw you guys in the gi, and I was jazzed seeing it. That's awesome.
Well, it's even better because John Farnham, Craig calls him the Monsignor of the firearms community because he's like the guy. Him and Masad Ayub and Tom Gibbons, they're like the guys. And John came to the class and hung around for a good 15, 20 minutes and was just like, oh, this is great, Cecil. This is great. And then he just mentioned me in his regular commentary that he sends out on email, talking about TacCon and talking about, getting the chance to learn practical grappling from Cecil Burch at TacCon. And I mean, it says a lot. Number one, John and Mass and Tom are, amazing examples of how to be open-minded and to always be looking for the best stuff and never accepting what we did 10, 15 years ago as the thing. But then for them to go out of their way to say that kind of stuff publicly, in Masad's book, Straight Talk on Armed Defense, he talks about me and the teaching, of my stuff. I mean, oh
yeah, great book.
That's a book. That is a phenomenal book. That's a phenomenal book.
I think one of the best books to recommend newer people.
Yep, that's a brilliant book, and it's typical Mass where it's not about shooting; it's about everything else that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many people now in the Sherman. There's a Sherman House, a perfect example. He never cared about jiu-jitsu. 14 months ago, he jumped in, started doing jiu-jitsu, and now he loves it.
Yeah, I've watched his journey, and it's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I love this subject because I see a future in the self-defense firearms. Let's just say it, firearms community. I see a future where if you aren't training in jiu-jitsu, you're going to be not looked down on. I shouldn't say that. It'll just be odd. I really believe that that's where we're headed.
Oh, I agree. I think the next generation or two of instructors, there's definitely much more going to be a thought about integrated teaching. Something that was revolutionary when Craig proposed it, in 2000. In 2021, it's like, well, of course you need to integrate this. Actually, to be perfectly honest, Masad Ayub talked about integrated training in 1983 in his book, The Truth About Self-Protection.
Well, and he spoke about using cap guns for simulated training, many years ago.
But it, not that many people paid attention to that, but now we're at the point in 2021 where like you said, it's going to be the thing. Even if you don't have a guy like me who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and doing firearms, there's still going to be this understanding that probably the guy who's teaching you stuff needs to have some level of understanding of grappling. There has to be a demonstrated proficiency in understanding and be able to perform grappling. Otherwise, you'll be like, I mean, I guess there'll be plenty of room for people who just want to teach shooting. but it's not going to be the thing. I really believe that's the future.
Well, Cecil, what I'd like to add to that is I would like our audience members, especially those that do not train in jiu-jitsu, we're not just talking, and Cecil, please correct me if I'm wrong in saying this. It is not just about the jiu-jitsu itself.
Nope.
It is what jiu-jitsu teaches you. It's the showing up, the discipline of showing up on the mats. It's dealing with yourself. It's dealing with your fitness. It's dealing with being underneath somebody that's heavier than you or more skilled than you, and what mental development that you get from showing up. And you know, do you agree with that? I didn't want to put words in your mouth, but
dude, I wrote an article about that, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, where I said that jiu-jitsu is the best bang for your buck in the self-defense world. Yeah, okay, so on the surface, it's you learn to deal with, you know, ground fighting, being on the ground against a bigger, tougher guy. Cool, that's important. We realize grappling happens. You need to know that. All right, so that's in and of itself, that's a justification, a rationalization to do it. But like you said, there's so much beyond that people who don't do jiu-jitsu don't understand. The fitness one is my favorite.
Yep.
Right? Because we're always talking about, well, how do we be fit for a fight? How do we be fit for a self-defense encounter? Because it can look so many different ways and there can be so many different inputs. You go, well, if I do a 1.5 mile run in 9 minutes, is that fit? Maybe. If I do 100 burpees in 7 minutes, is that fit? Well, you know, maybe. You know, if I do 10 pull-ups, is that fit? Well, yeah, all of it, probably. But it's hard to have that metric outside of fighting. You know, you could be, you could do CrossFit or whatever, and you could be in shape, but is that fighting? And it's hard to have, you know, the casino drill or fast test, equivalent of your fighting fitness. Well, go to jiu-jitsu. If you can roll against another human being who's doing everything they possibly can do to stop you, to defeat you, to make you lose, and they might be 50, 60, 70 pounds heavier than you, and you can roll against that person 5, 6, 7 minutes, or like at our competition class, it's 10-minute long rolls. If you can do that, rest maybe a minute, and then repeat 4 or 5 more times over a class, and you can do that multiple times a week, you're probably in good enough shape to handle any actual self-defense encounter, whether it's a grappling encounter or not. You know, it's a very easy metric to understand. Yeah, I just rolled 6 minutes against this guy who's 50 pounds tougher and a belt higher than me and 10 years younger, and I did really well. Well, you know what? Probably the same thing's going to happen when you really need to do it. So you get that fitness component, and it's built into everything you do. The mental part, we talk about mindset and that ability of that portion of mindset of I'm going to fight through it. Oh, I'm attacked. No matter what, you come at me, bro. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll bite and pinch and grab, and do all this. Really? How do you know? Because you know what? Every guy I've seen say that who then does force on force taps out.
Yep.
Because you don't do it. You don't do it. But where you get that? I mean, yeah, you can do force on force. Certainly in ECQC, you get that. The problem, no human being can train ECQC 2 hours a night, 2 or 3 times a week for a year. You're going to be broken down into a hunk. You can't train that way. You can train as a professional fighter. I mean, a professional UFC fighter certainly has that mental fortitude. But again, we can't do that. We're average, everyday people. We got all these other commitments. But you know what you can do? You can do jiu-jitsu. You can get that all the time. Number one, you're not being destroyed. You can do a good chunk of that rolling at 70, 80% intensity and get that maximum of that mental fortitude, that ability to fight through. Yeah, this guy's 70 pounds heavier than me. He's on top. He's crushing me. But you know what? I'm okay. I can work through this. And you get that over and over and over again. And the best part is you can go to work the next morning. You know, you're not crippled. You're not in the hospital. You're not too beat up that you can't function. You can do that. You can function in life without that.
And Cecil, you can do that essentially. You know, you can practice. I mean, Elio practiced till essentially the end of his life.
Yep, I know tons of guys. With our oldest guy who got a black belt, the oldest black belt awarded from my professor. The guy was 71 years old when he got his black belt.
Man, that's awesome.
So you can do this. Name me another fighting methodology. Well, I don't care what it is, where you can say that you can still fight decently. You still got a chance of being able to do this and train this in your 50s, in your 60s, in your 70s. You know, it's one of the reasons I don't do as much striking anymore. I mean, I don't think it has quite as much utility in a weapons-based environment as we used to think. I don't think it's nearly as consistently effective as we used to think. But the most important part is it's hell on the body. Most of my damage, most of the injuries I suffer now are not injuries I'm getting from jiu-jitsu and all this stuff. That might be the final straw. That might be the trigger. But the damage was done 20, 30 years ago doing boxing, doing Thaiboxing, doing Sevate, doing Pentjak Silat at full contact, doing full contact stick fighting with barely any pads, doing all that kind of stuff where, yeah, at 25, I was resilient. I could take that. I was like, no big deal. Yeah, it hurts. No big deal. No problem. But my body pays that price. And it's very difficult to do that. But man, I can roll. Yeah. Do I get injured? Do things happen? Sure. But it's not that same level of possibility of crippling me. And certainly I don't take nearly the brain trauma damage that I used to. But yet, like we said, you're still working actual fighting techniques. You're working fighting fitness. You're working that mental fortitude to fight through the, adversity. And you can do it multiple times a week, no matter what. Anybody can do it. It's not, you don't have to be some, 25-year-old, super athlete. Anybody, from 4 years old up to you're 90, people can do this, and name me another system that can do that.
Well, Cecil, I have something that ties into that. Number one, I want to talk about. Let me put it this way. I was going through my pictures here and trying to find my first ECQC, and I'll say this real quick. But long story short, I think it was maybe 8 or so years ago, Eric, 7 or 8, and I was scared my first Evo, and I was going to quit after I got done with my first Evo. But then when I got out there and Craig put the fist helmet on me, all of a sudden I wanted to do it.
Yep.
And from that first Evo, getting my butt kicked, I've been hooked on this stuff ever since. And then I came back knowing that I should get into jiu-jitsu, and that it still was in the back of my mind. Then my second ECQC, it was so clear that I had to come back and get into jiu-jitsu. So finally, my family and I found a school, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Tulsa here. And actually, my kids started first, but I finally, after years, trying to talk my wife into taking an ECQC class. You can handle this. I said, but you at least need to start jiu-jitsu. Oh, I'll try it out. She started and she has been gung-ho ever since. I think this week she is going to, or excuse me, last week she went to 7 classes. And I'm tying into what you're saying that anybody can do this. She has a terrible back. She needs back surgery. And yet she shows up and she rolls, and she has advanced significantly past me. And I went to, before this interview, I just got back from going to open mat where she was coaching me.
Yeah.
Right. So you know, I'm so proud of her. And it went from, man, I really want our family to get involved in this. And honey, I think you should do this because it's going to be good for you. And, you know, her resisting. And then now it's one of the most important things in her life.
Well, it's a good example because, you know, I hear this all the time, far less than I used to. There's always that excuse, you know, I'll put up a video or a blog post about doing jiu-jitsu, and, you know, some guy will go, yeah, well, that's great, but it's not great for me because I'm, you know, in my 40s and I have a bad knee and et cetera. You know, I'll never be a Pan Am champion. Well, duh. Where was that promise? Right? I never said do jiu-jitsu and you're going to be black belt world champion. That's not what this is about. All we should care about is, are you better than you were the day before? Are you better? Are you more capable? Are you safer? Are you more dangerous to bad guys than you were the day before? Now, doesn't mean that after 2 years of jiu-jitsu lessons, you're going to go and take on George St. Pierre and kick his ass. No, that's not the point. But you can kick the ass of you the 2 years before.
Yeah.
Right? And anybody less capable than that, you're going to be able to handle yourself. So I try to tell people, you do what you can do. Right? So your wife's, you know, she's got to watch her back. So she can't go, you know, just all out 100% all the time, rolling with the competitive guys. She has to mitigate that. She has to go, all right, I'm going to do this round a little hard. Maybe then the next class, I'm going to take it real easy and drill a little bit lighter, and I'll just slow roll, blah, blah. However you need to do it, you can do that in jiu-jitsu. That's, again, one of the beauties of it as a system, as a methodology, is it's not a competitive sport. There's a part of it that's a competitive sport, but that's not jiu-jitsu. That's, you know, I use this analogy all the time. Jiu-jitsu is guitar playing, right? There's heavy metal guitar, there's classical guitar, there's country guitar, there's, you know, whatever. And they each will play different notes and different melodies and chord progressions, etc. But essentially, the way you play chords and progressions and melodies and play the guitar, is it any different between classical guitar, heavy metal guitar, country guitar? No. Oh, you know, some guy uses fingers, another guy uses a pick. Big effing deal, right? It's all guitar. Nobody says, well, I just play heavy metal guitar. No, you play guitar and you only play heavy metal song. Right. So when people talk about jiu-jitsu, it's a competitive sport. No, that's an aspect of it. Jiu-jitsu as the whole thing is everything. And you can play that way. You can go to competition-oriented class and do competitions, or you could train without that. You can still train hard at times. You can still learn to fight. That has nothing to do with any sport aspect of it. There's no such thing as self-defense jiu-jitsu versus sport jiu-jitsu. That's BS made up to sell you something or made up to excuse somebody who can't perform.
Agreed.
Right? It's jiu-jitsu. It's all jiu-jitsu. If somebody wants to focus more, you're the Mendez brothers and you want to focus more on tournament jiu-jitsu and less on the self-defense aspect, cool. That's still jiu-jitsu. And anybody can do any of this stuff. It's not, I'm going to go to the jiu-jitsu gym and we're going to spar 100% all the time. And I'm always going to be against, 25-year-old studs. Well, sometimes but that's the benefit. You get used to doing that in a safe environment where you can trust that you're not going to die, but you can push yourself to get better. And if you're not capable of doing, like Monday night, I tweaked a nerve in one of my shoulders rolling. So Wednesday, when I was teaching and rolling, I babied it. I still rolled, but I wasn't trying to play my A game. I set my ego aside. If that other black belt, if that brown belt passed my guard, I didn't go, whoa, you can't do that. How dare you? That's what gets people injured in jiu-jitsu, is when the ego's in play on either side, right? The one guy has to win and you refuse to lose, right? I can't let this guy. I had a guy who, one of Meg's first guys, I think it was may have been Meg's first purple belt. Super great guy, but eventually life got in the way and he stopped training. And he comes back a few years later, and he remembered me as that really crappy white belt. Well, now I'm a purple belt. So we're rolling, and you can see the sheer panic in his eyes and his expression that he thought he would just bowl me over the way he used to 3-4 years before. So he's literally, I'm just passing his guard and I'm just going at, 80%. And he's like, his whole body is like coiled wire trying to keep me from passing. And all of a sudden he goes, and he grabs his legs. He tore his groin muscle from clenching so hard to keep me from passing. I didn't injure him. I didn't put the pressure on him. He did it to himself because he couldn't bear the thought that this guy who's still in his head, was that crummy white belt who didn't know anything, not the purple belt who had just won Inland Empire. You know what I mean? And it's his ego that gets you hurt. But you put that aside and you roll to learn, you're fine. Oh yeah, jam thumb, tweak this or whatever, but you're not getting hurt. And so literally anybody can do this. I don't care who you are. Yeah, you're not going to be challenging Haja Gracie for the GOAT title, or Marcelo Garcia or something like that. But you're still going to be a really capable and dangerous human being to that bad guy who thinks you're an easy touch. And that's all we should be caring about with this stuff. Not, do I compete? Do I think people should compete in jiu-jitsu? Sure, because it helps your training, right? Larry Lindemann loves to quote somebody, I can't remember who it is, a great strength and conditioning guy, and who says, you never go as deep as you do when you prepare for a competition. And that's absolutely true. And so, tournaments are good for that, but it's not the end all be all. It's a part of the overall. I'm not competing to win medals. That's a byproduct of competing that helps me get better. Right. And I think with that focus, then you go, all right, this is how we should be doing it. And anybody, I don't care who you are, anybody can do that. The 65-year-old grandmother can jump in and get better at jiu-jitsu.
Well, Cecil, you just mentioned Larry Lindemann. I'm embarrassed to say I did not know Larry got his black belt. When did that happen?
At least 2 years ago, if not 3 years.
I'm embarrassed by even mentioning that, but we're going to keep it on the air because I don't have any direct connection with Larry. He's been
and he's like Mike Brown. He's like Mike Brown a lot. He's not. He's not in your face promoting himself all the time. He's not out there going, hey, world, look at me.
Well, like you and I spoke when I was at the Rangemaster class. I've been intending to reach out to Larry. Maybe you can kind of hook us up because he doesn't know me very well. But the point is that Larry's influenced us as well, and especially on his fitness. His fitness acumen is awesome.
Yep,
and it's all very applicable. It's some of the most applicable fitness advice I'm aware of.
100%.
Yeah.
100%, dude. It is. He actually has written an ebook, and I'm going to say this publicly to push him. He wrote an ebook a few years ago. That's basically a brilliant compendium of all the stuff. And it's a short book. It's not huge. And it's a brilliant book, but he's never put it out there because he's like, whatever. People not going to read it. They don't want to care. And I'm like, Larry, this is what people need because there's no BS. He's not trying to sell you a product. He's not trying to sell you, some supplement or some meal plan or some guidance. It's literally, here's everything he knows about strength, conditioning, and nutrition in an easily understood format, condensed down that anybody can apply anywhere at any time. You don't have to be a young person with a personal chef or tons of money. It's a simple. He needs to update it because I think he wrote it like 4 or 5 years ago. So he needs to update it. But I keep pushing him to just get it out there. I just said, charge $7.99 for it.
Yeah.
Basically give it away to people. I wrote an ebook on my website that's basically, and I need to update it because it's kind of out of date now, but it was basically how to get, what to look for when you're a noob in jiu-jitsu. Right. And I just, if people just sent, emailed me, I just sent them the book. Here's a PDF. I don't know. It's a 30, 40 page thing. Just general things to help people get used to jiu-jitsu. It's not something I'm going to make money off of. It's just, I care about this and I want to get it out there. And I think this is helpful. And it's the same with Larry's book. He's not going to be the next nutrition guru of the world. That's not how he's going to make his living. But he wanted people to know this kind of stuff because it is so useful.
I think since we're talking about it on the air, I think it's a good segue to get him on the show and to push him to put it out there because, I'd like to quote him. One of my favorite Larry Lindemann quotes is, "You can't shoot a heart attack in the face."
Yep, that's exactly right.
And so folks need his information. So very cool.
We talk multiple times a week. I'll tell him and I'll pass you his contact information. He should be on the show. He'd be a great guest.
Awesome. Actually, other than Chris and Larry are the last Shivworks collectives for us to have on the show. So
they're two of the best speakers too.
Yeah, we had Chris aligned, but something came up with work and it fell through. But we'll get him on for sure. So Cecil, we're getting close to the end of the show. We've taken enough of your time this evening. Man, what awesome content. I think that our audience is going to get so much out of this. If anything else, it's going to encourage people that are on the fence to understand that jiu-jitsu is something that they can seek out and should seek out. And it's not daunting. You just have to start, But I'd like to ask you the question, what's the secret to jiu-jitsu?
Show up. Just literally, that's it. I just told that to my class last week. I was teaching something. I go, all right, guys. All right, here, I'm going to give you the $1 million secret to get good at jiu-jitsu. Okay, you ready? All right, circle up. Everybody come closer. All right, ready? Now, you can't go and tell anybody this. Because those of us who've done this, we spent so much time. You can't go spreading this around. Okay, you ready? Here's the secret. Show up. That's literally it. Your timeline might be different based on how often you show up, but just show up. You will get better. Yeah, if you go to class once a week, it's going to take you a long time to get to black belt. It's going to take you a long time to really start to understand jiu-jitsu. I mean, honestly, you start to grasp jiu-jitsu your third or fourth stripe blue belt up to purple belt. So you're talking 3 to 5 years of 2 to 3 times a week of training. All right, so you only go once a week. Well, do the math. It's going to take longer. But you're still going to get it. The person who doesn't get it, the person who doesn't get good at jiu-jitsu, here's the pathway. They start. They come a couple times. They do that for maybe a month. Then something happens. They get tired at work. They're sore, whatever. So they don't show up for a week. And then they go to one class the next week. And then they miss a couple weeks. And then they do a class or two. And then they miss a couple weeks. And now they know they're really behind and their cardio's sucking. So then they come with an excuse. Well, you know what? I'm going to take a couple weeks off and I'm going to build my cardio up and I'm going to get back to jiu-jitsu. and then the couple weeks off turns into a couple months. And then they go back to jiu-jitsu and the guy who started with them is now smoking them on the mat. And they go, well, I just can't get it. No, you would have got it because that guy who just smoked you on the mat, he has nothing over you, literally has nothing over you, except he probably came 2 times a week, every week, and didn't miss. And he probably took notes and he probably spent, a couple minutes on the drive home after class thinking about the lessons from jiu-jitsu. Awesome. And he got good. That's literally it. Yeah, if you show you want to go 5-6 days a week, yeah, you do the BJ Penn thing. Everybody goes, "Oh, BJ Penn's a phenom. He got his black belt in like 4 or 5 years." Yeah, you know why? Because he literally trained every single day, and he was a young guy. He was in his early 20s. He had nothing else going on, and he trained 5, 6, 7 days a week. Yeah, well, guess what? You're going to get your black belt sooner. It wasn't that he picked up jiu-jitsu any faster than anybody else, like he mastered it, he understood it better, or he was some physical freak. He just did it. Michael Jordan. You look at Michael Jordan with basketball, right? He'll tell you, in his, I think it was his biography or whatever, he was saying, up to his first couple years in high school, he sucked. He didn't have some great hand-eye coordination or any particular super physical stuff. He just worked harder than everybody else and kept doing it. When everybody else walked off the court, he stayed on the court. That's how most of this stuff is. Everyone's, oh, well, that guy's naturally talented. Okay, maybe he's got a couple things going for him, but I don't have any natural talent. I don't have any. I got anti-talent. Is what I have.
Right? Bullshit.
Right? No, it's true, dude. No, this is true. I was the kid picked last in dodgeball in PE in high school. I mean, that's the God's honest truth. I tell this story, and everybody thinks I'm joking, this is truth. Is I was Meg's first pity blue belt. All the people who started with me, and even guys who came later, they're all blue belts. And here's Cecil with his dingy, dirty, grayish white belt. And I think Meg just felt sorry for me and said, I'll just give him a blue belt. I didn't have anything going for me. But the reason I'm a 3rd degree black belt, and the reason I've been American national champion and Pan Am champion, and then I've medaled at Masters Worlds, never won world championships, but I've at least medaled.
That's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. So I still got a chance. Still got a few years left. I got a couple shots. But the reason I did that was because I kept showing up. When everybody else quit, when other people stopped, when other people had an excuse, I kept showing up and getting my butt handed to me. But eventually, after a while, you start to understand things and you start to be able to perform. And then here I am. So now I help run the academy. I'm responsible for all the new guys getting to blue belt. I'm a 3rd degree black belt, blah, blah, all this stuff. It's not because I suddenly, as I got older, I suddenly got physically better. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm more broken down than I was when I was 30, but I'm light years better than that. Why? Because I just kept training. That's literally jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu will come to anybody if you just don't quit. Start, I guess. So here's the secret. Start, right? And don't quit and show up as consistent as possible. That's it. There's your formula. Do that, you'll be a black belt. It might take you 10 years, might take you 15, might take you 18 years. I don't know. But you will get there if you stay on that path. There's not some secret handshake club that we know, that those of us who are black belts that we know. It's not. It's just show up and do the work. It's just a simple thing. But I think in today's society, especially, we're preconditioned to the pill. Give me this pill. Give me this piece of gear. Give me this thing that will fix all my problems.
The shortcut.
The shortcut. Hey, I want gastric bypass surgery. Well, you know what? You would probably be better off with spending about 6 months focusing on diet nutrition and having a little bit of discipline as far as that. That would probably go longer. No. I want to get it all done at once. Okay. That's what we want. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of when they do any of this kind of stuff, any kind of hand-to-hand stuff, any kind of integrated stuff. They're like, it's going to be hard and I'm going to get beat up and I'm going to lose. My ego's going to be busted and broken. Yeah, you want that. You want your ego to be torn apart because then it gets built back up for real, right? Because I have an ego because I know I deserve it, because I know the path that all the stuff I've done the last 42 years to get to this point. I get to pat myself on the back. Now, I'll pat myself on the back and then shut up about it and get back to training. But you know what? I can do that. It's not fake. All my ego and all that, stupid stuff, how we view ourselves as the John Wick of our own story gets beat up and shown for the fantasy that it is. But you know what? You can build the reality. You just have to work at it. You just have to step on the mat. You have to step on the range. You have to step in the gym and start lifting and running and doing those kind of things. And it will come to you. I don't care what any of this stuff is. I before I fell in love with martial arts, when I was like 13, 14, I was a music nerd, right? And all I wanted to be a rock star. I don't even want to be a rock star. I just wanted to play in a rock and roll band, right?
Yeah.
But I sucked. And the reason I sucked was because I assumed that I would take a few guitar lessons and play a few times and I'd be able to, play Stairway to Heaven. The reality, you guys know this as musicians, right? The reality is it's a lot of drudgery, especially in the beginning, right? It's the same thing with music. Anybody could be decent at music if you put the work into it. I didn't understand that then as a 13, 14, 15-year-old. I didn't understand that. It wasn't until I started doing martial arts that I understood that lesson. Was one of the things that martial arts, especially jiu-jitsu, above everything else, jiu-jitsu gave that understanding to me that it's just do it.
Just drudgery, like you mentioned. And
Yep.
It's funny, Eric and I earlier were talking a little bit about he got a new drum kit and we've been working on some new music for the show and just he's gotten back into playing drums, which he's always been a drummer and a great drummer at that. But he's just in the last 15 or so years, it's just not been a huge priority to him. But he recently got this amazing kit that he's been wanting for a long time. And he texted me and said, "Hey, man, I've been working with a metronome and a practice pad more than playing drums." He goes, it's just like dry fire. It's the most important part of playing drums. And I was just so stoked about that because, see, here I am, 47 years old. I've played guitar for 32 years, and I still wake up every morning to practice for an hour.
Yep.
And then I'll practice for an hour in the evening. On the weekends, I'll practice for hours a day. I love the process of practicing. I love what you said, the drudgery, because I know what the dividends are. So I enjoy the drudgery.
Right. Right. Well, I think that's maybe the biggest problem we have as instructors is not encouraging people to enjoy the drudgery, right? We tell people dry fire, go dry fire. Well, sometimes dry fire is not fun.
Yep.
So, okay, cool, fine, no problem. Do it for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I do that. I do that a lot. I'll get out there, I'll set my gear up and I'll get ready to go. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. So I'm like, I'll just set the timer and I'll get the reps in for 5 minutes and then I'm done. Would I be better off in doing a Super Dave Harrington 2-hour dry fire practice? Sure. But that day was not that day. But you still enjoy the time you're doing it and be consistent, right? Just 5 minutes a day this day. And then maybe I'll do 15 minutes and then I'll do an hour and then I'll do only 3 minutes. You know what I mean? But you have to enjoy and understand that that's part of the process. And I think when you reach that point of really understanding stuff, you do dig the drudgery because you know that's where the learning occurs. You see, like we were working. One of the other black belts, Juan and I were working last week, and we were just kind of screwing around. He's got this throw he does, and we were talking, and I'm like, because he does it from a cross collar grip, which is not very common. And so we were talking, what about this? What about this? What if he does this? And it's just this riffing of the minutia of the possibilities. And am I ever going to use that throw? I don't know. But it was cool to spend 15 or 20 minutes just kind of going through the little stuff about it. And you just have to love that. Once you love that, then you know what? You're probably going to be really good at what you're doing, I think.
Well, Cecil, if I can add to what you said, just regarding the dry practice, all of us that are serious about firearms, we dry practice. I mean, it's just a part of what we do, and that's another thing that we espouse in EvoSec. Yes, there's going to be times where you're just not in it.
Yep.
But you go through the protocol and you go through the motions, you get it done. And guess what? If you get in a gunfight tomorrow, you handled and practiced with your gun yesterday. Yep. And I think that's one of the key parts of it is that, even if you weren't really into dry practice that day, you still went through it and you got your practice in.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And you also hit on something that I think is important regarding jiu-jitsu. It's the same thing. It's like sometimes it's going to be hard to show up on the mats, but you show up anyway. So, yeah, man, this is great discussion. I think that our audience is going to be very they're going to benefit from this.
Well, I always tell people jiu-jitsu is made up of peaks, valleys, and plateaus. And the crummy thing is you don't get to pick where you are on the map at any given point. You might be in the peak and everything's just flowing and you can pull off sweeps and this and everything's great. Or you're in the valley where now that guy who you normally dominates is now passing your guard. He's on top and he's almost getting you in the guillotine and you're like, son of a biscuit. But then the worst are the plateaus. The plateau's the worst, where you're not sucking, but you're not getting any better. You're just kind of staying on the treadmill. And the problem is, you might be on that for 6 months. You might be. I remember one time I thought I was on a plateau for over a year. It's just I wasn't getting any better. I wasn't getting worse, but I didn't get better. But you know what? You just keep getting, just like the treadmill. You just get back on and you just keep going. All right, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to enjoy when I can and just deal with it. And then all of a sudden, you pull off a submission that you've never done before. And you're like, how did that happen? Well, because you put in that time, you put in that drudgery, that plateau, and you got through it, and your body and your mind and your soul adjusted and went, boom, here's the breakthrough. Now you're at a peak. It just happens. And people need to understand that kind of stuff. And I think you learn that better in jiu-jitsu than any place else. Because it happens in shooting too. I mean, you go to the range and you're burning it down like you can't miss. And then you go the next week and you're like, I can't even do dot torture at 3 yards. I suck.
Well, and if I can comment on a discussion we had with Mike, and it was very fitting for all of us. And to hear it come from Mike, who's an accomplished black belt, is that he still feels that frustration.
Yep.
You know, that he's on the mats and, you know, just in his day. And to hear him say that I mean, I'm hoping to get my purple belt here soon, working on it. And basically, Aaron talked about being frustrated at times at his level, and it's just one of those things. And when you hear some of your mentors that are at both yours and Mike's and others' level voice that, it helps all of us. You know?
Yeah. I had one time I had another podcast guy one time say, "Why do you put yourself down?" And I'm like, I'm not putting myself down. This is absolutely not self-deprecation or putting myself down. It's just saying the reality of sometimes things don't go your way. And I think people need to understand that. You know, it goes back to what we were saying, where somebody starts jujitsu and goes, or it doesn't want to start jujitsu because they go, well, I'm already in my 40s. I'm never going to be a Pan Am champion. Yes, so
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. And so guess what? Here's this. So you look at Haja Gracie. I absolutely guarantee you, he had moments of frustration. You look at anybody, everybody's done this. Everybody in jiu-jitsu's done this. So, you know, I think one of the things that guys like myself and Mike can do is tell people, yeah, you know what? There's some days, you know, some days you're the windshield and some days you're the bug. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. A brown belt, one of a really good brown belts, a good competitive brown belt, and he's got 25 years on me, and he's probably got 40 pounds on me. He caught me with a triangle a couple weeks ago. Okay. You know, stuff happens. You know, it's not that we're suddenly invincible or something.
No.
You know, we all have the same thing, and everyone's going to feel the same frustration. But again, you just stay on the path. You just keep going. I guarantee you. You look at something like, you know, Masashi's work. I guarantee you there's stuff on this in his writing about this idea of, I can't cite which of the books, but I guarantee you it's in there, the same kind of thing where you just train. You know, he just talking about just train.
Yeah, I think that's hit on in the Book of Five Rings for sure.
Yeah, it's in one of the books. It's in one of them for sure. He talks about that.
I could be wrong
concept
too, but I seem to recall that in there.
Yeah, but you know, and I think people miss out on that message. You know, but we as instructors, we can't set ourselves apart from the students. We can't be on a pedestal with this kind of stuff. It's like we're no different than our students. We just have been doing it a bit longer, and maybe we stumbled on a good pathway to get there, but we don't have any particular advantage over them for the most part, you know? And I think we need to make sure that the students understand that, and they don't look at us as like, well, I'll never attain your level. Yeah, you will. You know, I'm sure Mike looked at me that first time, 2005 or so, that he brought me to Tulsa. 2006, might have been 2005. That he brought me to Tulsa and like, oh, here's this brown belt. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. And now look at him, world champion. Great black belt in his own right, you know. Anybody can do it. We just have to keep, you know, drudgery, right? Nose to the grindstone.
Yeah, good stuff, Cecil. Well, Cecil, I would tell you that this has actually been one of the funnest shows I think we've done, and just so informative. And you know, one of the biggest reasons we do this venture is because we ourselves in EvoSec, we just like learning ourselves. And I know we get input from audience members and a lot of folks out there that get so much out of the learning from this show, and it's not to prop up what our show's doing. That's not what I mean. It's like it's amazing what I learn when we do these interviews, and I am sure that anybody out there listening to this show is going to benefit from this. So thank you so much for all your awesome wisdom this evening.
Oh, you bet. I had fun. I like just riffing on this kind of stuff. You ask me what I think about jiu-jitsu and the importance of it, or training and that kind of stuff. Man, I can talk to like-minded people all day long. That's my favorite.
Awesome.
When I do seminars, I always try to make myself available, especially like Saturday night after the seminar. Let's just all go out to dinner.
Man,
right? Let's
awesome
students
time.
Because am I wiped out? Yeah, I'm mentally, wasted at that point. And I know I got to be back on the mats the next morning teaching and stuff. But you know what? When do I get to sit for 2 hours with a bunch of like-minded people and talk about stuff that we love? So I'm like, for me, that's as much fun as a component of the seminars as teaching and doing all that stuff.
Well, awesome. I can't wait. That'll be fun.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I love Tulsa, and I'm going to get to see a bunch of old friends, people I used to train with. There'll be I know there are some special guests who are showing up, people that other people know and know of who are going to be there. And it should be a really fun event.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. I would call it a mini conference.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's turning into that with the guys who are telling me that they're showing up. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of almost a mini conference. I don't know though about coming to Oklahoma in July though. That might not be. I've done that before. That might not be the best time to come to Tulsa.
Well, you better bring your shorts and your thinner t-shirts.
Yep.
At least it's in a jiu-jitsu gym and not outside. We're not doing ECQC out in Oklahoma July.
Right, exactly. That would be death. That would definitely be death. At the very least, we're only going to be suffering when we walk out to the cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Well, then we ought to remind the listeners that is July 16th through the 18th, and that's at Clinch Martial Arts Academy, and by the way, that is where Mike Brown teaches. So,
yep.
So yeah, great school there too, and man, we can't wait. Now, where should people go to look for this class, Cecil?
So you can go on my website, www.iacombatives.com, Immediate Action Combatives. You can do a search, but it's iacombatives.com, and I have a link to schedule. And I should have the contact information, or people can just email me at cecil.iacombatives.com. That's, and I can send it to anybody. I'll also be putting it up there. I've already put it up on social media, Instagram, Facebook. Both my Instagram and Facebook pages are Immediate Action Combatives because I'm not particularly clever. And so I'll just use the easiest titles. But they can go there and check it out there, or message me through those pages as well.
Well, Cecil, thanks for that info on the class, and man, we are looking forward to it. I can't wait to hang out with you when you come here. This is going to be the first EvoSec event here in Tulsa. But hey, thanks again for coming on and spending the evening with us, and man, you just have a good evening and a good weekend.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I enjoyed the first show very much, and I always listen to all the other episodes. You always have good guests, and the discussions are always good. So I certainly enjoy being on the show again. It was a fun discussion, and I'm looking forward to getting back to Tulsa, seeing my friends there, and training and hanging out with you guys, and catching up. And Eric and I get to catch up, and hopefully this time I won't smack him across the head multiple times with the Sims gun.
Yeah, awesome. I heard about that. Yeah. Well, man, we look forward to it. It's going to be a blast. So thanks again, buddy, and you have a good evening.
You too, dude. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Eric.
Take care, brother.
once again, a great interview with Cecil. It was awesome having him back for a second time. And hey, Brian, it is really cool that we've had on. So we've had on almost all of the Shivworks guys, and we're working on getting the rest of the guys on here, So again, super cool having him on. Now, I guess we'll go ahead and jump into accountability, just get it going. What do you say?
Well, it sounds good to me, man.
Well, I'll give it a whirl here. So for exercise, I have stepped it up, again, not to Brian's level. I keep seeing his workouts on text, etc. But so I did get some nice mile walks in about 4 nights this week. And every day I've been doing some regular, calisthenics type exercises, but I'm starting out every night with a lot of mobility exercises and some nerve flossing for my back. I've been having a little bit of back pain, so I've been doing some good stretches and mobility to help that. But of course, with my exercises, it's been sets of push-ups, squats, pull-ups, and some crunches this week. Now, for jiu-jitsu, I've been going to 1 class a week and then going to open mat with my wife, and I'm doing a lot of drilling with her so we can go over a lot of techniques. That's been really great. Again, having a great coach like my wife is really good. Now, also something I've been doing every day, I think I've mentioned this before, but I have this cool, it's really made for physical therapy. It's called the Can-Do Twist and Bend. It's used to work on grip strength. So I have, there's 4 exercises that I do every day. I'll kind of remember to do it as I'm working here from home still. I'll do 4 exercises with that and take that to fatigue to work on my grip strength for shooting. Now, speaking of shooting, if you guys remember on the Kyle DeFore episode and on the Mike Brown episode, we've been talking a lot about the Holosun 507C, and then, lots of guys are recommending those, so I went ahead and grabbed one of those, and I got it in on a Thursday, zeroed it the next day on Friday at lunch, and then the next day on Saturday, I shot the best match I've ever shot. Now, I'm not just saying it's just the dot, but it's really, again, that what we've spoke about is it's negating my vision issues quite a bit. So, man, I'm loving that optic. It's pretty crazy, the quality that you can see in that thing when you get it out of the box. I mean, just superb. And I'm looking forward to running that again. I am going to go ahead and go practice tomorrow. I've got the Tom Givens instructor development course coming up, so I've been practicing at least once a week for that. Okay, so one more thing, something kind of fun, and maybe people saw this on Instagram, but I shared a picture of this. I went ahead and I was thinking about sending my 17 MOS off to have it, one of those cool companies to do a nice custom grip job on it. But man, I started thinking about that cost versus some ammo or some training. I thought, I'm going to save that and put it towards, some ammo probably for this upcoming class. But I went ahead and did some research and found out about a detailed wood carving tool that a lot of guys are using to put the border on their stippling jobs or texture jobs. So to me, that's always been what set aside these higher end grip jobs would be the border. So I finally got that in and finished that up the other day. And man, as I looked at it the first time, I was kind of focusing on some of the flaws. It's hard to get that perfect. But man, as I sit back, I'm looking at it right now, I'm pretty darn pleased with how it turned out. So definitely looks less DIY with that border tool I use. So, well, man, that's it for me, Brian. It was a fun week for sure.
Nice. Well, I've again been missed the last accountability, so I'll get you kind of up to speed with where I'm at. About 5 weeks ago, I actually had a substantial hamstring and disc issue. That's what we believe anyway, combined, because I'm having some nerve issue and some pain in the hamstring that was kind of presenting like sciatica, but that wasn't, we figured out that's not really, I don't think, what was going on. But so I actually took a couple weeks out of the gym completely. That was weird to not be going to the gym. Also, oddly enough, that was right after I had restarted jiu-jitsu. So none of that. And I have not been back yet, merely because of the nature of my leg problem currently. But the last several weeks I have been back in the gym, just focusing on upper body, non-deep flexing, loaded, things with my legs. So no running, no jumping because of the hamstring issue, but really feeling a ton better. And I think I'm going to get back to jiu-jitsu next week. And I'm really hoping that my path gi shows up soon. They are out like 4 to 6 weeks on gis right now. So I'm right about the time it should be shipping. I'm like, come on, man. I keep checking every day. Has that shipped yet? So excited to see that show up, but I think I'm going to get back, even if I don't open roll, next week. I'll at least drill, and that I'll have no issue with that. But that's a lot. Just was really frustrating to just get back in there and then get an injury. But we got to listen to our bodies, right? So when that stuff happens, you don't just shake it off and pretend it didn't happen. So, but it's good to be back in the gym. I got 4 workouts in this week, and this week I really kind of was my heaviest week back so far, and I'm really ramping it up to where I'm getting the same kind of calorie burn and fatigue that I was prior to being injured. I'm just trying to not use my lower body any more than I need to do that. And one of the things I realized, having to modify my movements, having to do things differently, and sharing this with you guys is, I say I did some CrossFit workouts. That's great, but I figured I should at least share kind of what I'm doing. I've been doing a lot of kettlebell swings. I've been doing a lot of pull-up progressions, a ton of push-ups, strict presses, because I'm being careful about loading my spine and I don't want to load it dynamically. So in a static strict press versus like a push press or a push jerk, I'm not getting that snap load. It's just a constant load, and I don't mind that. But I got to tell you, if you're in a position where you're not sure what to do and you need to start working out, get a kettlebell. Man, either a 35 or 45 pound kettlebell. There are so many exercises you can do with that. You can do rows with it. You can do swings with it. You can do overhead strict presses with it. You can do push presses with it. Today, we had a movement that, they did deadlifts today, and I'm not in a position where I'm ready to start deadlifts because of the hamstring. So I grabbed a 44 pound kettlebell and I did strict presses from the shoulder. And then I also did pull-ups. I did a ton of pull-ups today, and I rode on the bike instead of running, so I was able to modify all those movements and still do the workout with everybody in the gym and still get a substantial, I had a 135 BPM heart rate for an hour. And that's really, I don't care what I'm doing as far as, I'm not like, oh, I deadlifted this or I cleaned that. I want my heart rate high for an extended period. That's the whole point of this. And, you don't have to go as hard as I do, but elevate your heart rate and keep it elevated for a period of minimum 15 to 20 minutes. That's what's really going to make a difference in your cardio and your strength training, is if you go to that level. So been trying to focus on getting back in. And then of course I usually do a sauna, and today I did my workout today, was an hour sauna for 20 minutes, probably 180 degrees, a little water on the rocks, sweating the whole time. And then about a 4-minute cold shower. And I don't mean ice cold, but probably 50 degrees or cooler. So it's cold, and that's bringing the body back down to temp, and that, that's a great morning, man. And that's my morning. And that all happens before 7 a.m. So it's great to get that done out of the way and then move on with the rest of my day, you know? So that's very cool. Shooting, I've not been shooting as much as I should. I've got a big match this weekend though for Silhouette, the largest match we do of the year. It's a 2-day event. It'll be 240 shots over the 2 days on the little steel animals.
Oh, cool.
Knocking them down. But
what kind of rifle do you run? Is it centerfire or?
So this is rimfire this weekend. So it is 22. The shortened distance, but again, we're shooting 40, 60, 77, and 100 meters. And of course, it's standing. Not this is not rested. This is the joke is the bench proofs the rifle, but standing up proofs the shooter. So
cool.
Got to stand up and make your shots count. So we'll see how that goes. I may or may not report back on that. We'll see how my weekend goes.
Well, but you're going, man. So that's super cool.
Oh yeah, no, and that's what I encourage people to do. Go to, if you have the opportunity to attend matches or go to friendly matches or do, any type of local shooting range has got a match, go do it, man. It's just going to get you more comfortable with your gear and it's going to make you a better shooter. But as far as drills go, the last drill I did was actually the hack qual. I actually haven't shot my pistol this week, but I also, okay, make all the fun of me you want, guys. If Eric was here, he'd be chiming in too. I got a pistol with a dot.
Oh, yeah.
So awesome. I got a 365 XL with the Romeo Zero, and I'm looking at getting a Hollow Sun too.
Somebody's kind of eating crow right now, I think. Maybe a little bit.
I shot the 25-yard hack qual with the 365 XL, and I did score 90 or better. I broke the time cap by 2 seconds. So I've got work to do there, but I was really happy with the fact that I was able to keep that score with that little tiny pistol. And I really do. I wear glasses. I don't have too much trouble with the sights. I'm really accustomed to shooting sights. But man, if you put the time in to acquire that dot, it really is a game changer for this longer range stuff, man.
Oh yeah,
it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
People might get tired of hearing us talk about it, but again, I was listening to another Rob Latham interview, and he's just going on and on about the dot. It's just interesting, man. All of a sudden,
well, when we had Kyle on, same thing.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, if you can shoot a 90 at 25 yards with open sights, he said you can do that at 50 with a dot.
Yep. Yep.
So that's pretty cool, man.
Well, and I can say this, still at you get out to 25 yards, my vision issues do still kind of start showing up, but I am shooting a lot better at 25 yards now. So, well,
that's good. Well, that's really all I've got for accountability. I have been flying, I'll just throw that in, but the drill that we're gonna prescribe is the same. We're gonna keep shooting what we did from last week. This is a great drill because it only takes 15 rounds to go through, and it's one of these baseline tests, man. And it's the Kyle DeFore Pistol Test 1, and you can find this on his website along with other drills, which we encourage you to go look at. But it's on it uses an IPSC target with a NRA B8 pasted on top, and I would go to Kyle's site actually to look at it because I can describe this, but man, it's going to be a lot easier if you read it through. But it's all prescribed out. And when you look that up, it's DeFoor, DEFOOR, Proformance. So that's PRO, Proformance. And you can just type Kyle DeFoor Pistol Test 1. It'll pop up.
Oh yeah, that's what I just did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll take you right to it. So it's one of those drills that really pushes you, and it's designed to be shot cold. So it's, if you haven't shot in a few days, this is what you go out and shoot first.
Yeah.
And it gives you a baseline of where you're at for the day. And then if you're going to do some other drills or whatnot, shoot it at the end and see how you do. And that gives you an idea of what your perishable skills are, you know. And I tell you, I mean, I've been shooting a long time. I'm frequently astonished at how well I can shoot cold. But if my period of shooting and rest from shooting goes too long, it does decrease. And I've been able to notice that by doing drills like this and having a baseline when you go check it. So always encourage you to have a favorite baseline drill. And this is one of those for me.
Well, I'm glad we are keeping it going, because when I tried it, I did not pass it. So, but that's all right. You know, I'll tell you what was rough for me was getting running 25 yards, turning around and getting 6 shots at that bullseye on, you know, in 30 seconds. That sounds like forever, but I mean, I think I went over about 3 seconds. So, and you know, I saw that there's a great video. That's one cool thing about Kyle, before we get off here, is that he posts videos of him doing his own stuff, and even not perfect, right?
Yeah.
I saw him do this, and he barely passed that first part too. When it came to the accuracy part of it, he was right a little over 50 points. So that's cool, man. That he didn't go back and shoot it again to make sure he, you know, just totally nailed it. You know, he didn't crush it. You know, so
yeah.
But yeah, people should get out there and do that. It's a tough one.
For sure. Well, I think we're ready to wrap it up for another show, man.
Sounds good, man. It was a great show. As always, man, I just kind of pinch myself because of the people we get to chat with and the things we learn chatting with them. So another great episode, and it's great talking to you tonight, Brian, and you have a good weekend there.
You too, buddy, man. Until next time.
All right.